Thank you. We're recording this just so everybody knows. In case you don't know, I am your host, Karen Lee Ramos. Pretty sure everybody knows that by now. And as always, I'd like to thank Ringwood Manor Arts for sponsoring this series, made possible with funds from the Passaic County Cultural and Heritage Council, a partner of the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. If we were in our beautiful barn that we keep talking about, this is the part where I would point to the jar hanging off of a beam and the big red donation box on that table, and I would ask everybody to give whatever they can because every penny counts. Thankfully, even though the barn roof is not even started yet, you can still support this series and our many other art programs. All you have to do is go to ringwoodmanorarts.org, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click the donate button. And speaking of clicking buttons, don't forget to follow and like us on Facebook and Instagram so you can keep up with all the cool goings on. So let's start with a poem. This is by Andrea Podis, and the title is To Begin a Poem. You need only a scrap, just one loose page torn off the maps that lead to treasure. You need to hear the far off cry, echo of the child wandering through the tangled woods, waiting for you to find a pattern in the spill of crumbs at your feet. Come to her rescue with a generous heart. Lean to her voice and listen to her story. This is how I came to be lost. Isn't that a lovely poem? Okay, it's time to introduce our featured poet, a woman who needs no introduction, but I'm gonna give her one anyway. Maria Mazzotti Gillen is the founder and executive director of the Poetry Center at Passaic County Community College in Paterson, New Jersey, and editor of the Paterson Literary Review. She is Bartle Professor and Professor Emerita of English and Creative Writing at Binghamton University, SUNY. Maria has published 23 books. Her most recent is When the Stars Were Still Visible, Stephen F. Austin State University Press, 2021. Her poetry and photography collaboration with Mark Hilleringhouse, this is a beautiful, amazing book, Paterson Light and Shadow, was published by Serving House Books 2017. The poetry collection What Blooms in Winter was published by NYQ Books 2016. Maria is also a visual artist. Her collection, can you see that? There. Her collection of poems with some of her paintings, I love this title, The Girls in the Chartreuse Jackets, and it was published by Cat in the Sun Books 2014. Other books include Ancestor Song, The Silence is an Empty House, Writing Poetry to Save Your Life, How to Find the Courage to Tell Your Stories, probably my favorite of all, The Place I Call Home, a bilingual poetry collection titled In a Place of Flowers and Light, and What We Pass On, collected poems 1980 to 2009. She's also co-editor with her daughter Jennifer of 4 anthologies. She has won numerous awards, such as the AWP 2014 George Garrett Award for Outstanding Community Service in Literature, the 2011 Barnes & Noble Writers for Writers Award, and the 2008 American Book Award for her book, All That Lies Between Us. She's received New Jersey State Council on the Arts Fellowships in Poetry and a New Jersey Governor's Award for Literary Outreach. Her books have been chosen as Editor's Choice by Booklist, New York Public Library Booklist, and one of the American Library Association's outstanding books for lifelong learners. Maria's work has been published in countless journals and anthologies, and she has been read on television and radio. Her poems appear on several state and national tests, including in Italy. The Maria Mazzotti Gillen collection of her papers is housed at the Binghamton University Libraries. Maria has read her poems at universities, festivals, and poetry centers throughout the United States and around the world. And tonight, she's going to read for us. And aren't we lucky? I now give you the incomparable Maria Mazzotti Gillen. You can unmute yourself, Maria. We're going to do the snaps. Not yet. We're waiting. It's okay.
No, we can't hear you yet.
Yeah. I'd like to send Megan over there, but I don't think she can make it.
All right,
now you're unmuted. Good.
Yay. And I'm going to mute myself now.
I'm going to start by I've had a lot of books published, and some of these poems will be familiar to you, and some will be much newer and you may not recognize them. But this one is called Arturo, and it's about my father. I've written a lot about my father. I was so mean to him when I was growing up that I almost feel I have to make up for everything I did. My mother used to say, whatever you do will come back to you. And she didn't mean that in a good way. And it does come back to you. Arturo, I told everyone your name was Arthur. Tried to turn you into the imaginary father in the three-piece suit I wanted instead of my own. I changed my name to Marie, hoping no one would notice my face with its dark Italian eyes. Arturo, I send you this message from my younger self, that fool who needed to deny the words wop, guinea, greaseball, slung like curved spears, the anguish of sandwiches made from spinach and oil, the roasted peppers on homemade bread, the rice pies of Easter. Today, I watch you, clean as a cherub, your ruddy face shining, closed by your growing deafness in a world where my words cannot reach you. At 80, you still worship Roosevelt and JFK. Read the newspaper carefully, know with a quick shrewdness the details of revolutions and dictators, the cause and effect of all wars, no matter how small. Only your legs betray you as you limp from pillar to pillar. Yet your convictions remain as strong now as they were at 20. For the children, you carry chocolates wrapped in gold foil and find for them always your crooked grin and a $5 bill. I smile when I think of you. Listen, America, this is my father, Arturo. I am his daughter, Maria. Do not call me Marie. Took me a long time to get to that, where I could say that. And so I'm glad I finally got to it. And I'm going to read a poem about my son, who has become much more accepting of me as a poet and my nutty lifestyle and all the rest of it. But for a long time, he thought I was completely out of my mind. What I can't face about someone I love, that my son loves me, but would prefer not to see me too much. Every Sunday night, when I call him in North Carolina, who lives with his wife and 2 children, I can hear the heaviness in his voice, his hello tempered with impatience, our conversation stiff and stilted, they always think I can talk to a stone. Strangers in buses and trains tell me their life histories. Acquaintances tell me about their affairs and shattered marriages, show me the secret undersides of their lives. My graduate students vie for my attention. They want to sit next to me and carry my bags and fetch my lunch. But my son can't wait to get off the phone with me. I ask him how the kids are or specific questions about school, ask him about his wife, his job. He answers with one or two words. They're fine or okay or the same. My son is a lawyer. He was always brilliant with language, at least written language, and he can read a 300-page book in an hour and remember every detail. But with me, he turns mute as a stump. If I ask for help with some legal problem, he will give it, but I do not hear in his voice the lilt I hear in my daughter's voice when I call her. Instead, I hear reluctance, as though his attention will focus on some really, truly fascinating person, and he can't wait to get off the phone. I tell stories that I hope will amuse him. But finally, after struggling and finding no response, I can't wait to hang up. I say, well, John, have a good week. Give everyone a hug for me. I know my son has divorced me somewhere deep inside himself in a place he doesn't look at. I am too much for him, too loud, too dramatic, too frantic, too emotional. I laugh too much. I wear him out in a minute and a half. If he never saw me again, he wouldn't miss me. And this is what I can't face about someone I love. And it's hard to have that. It's so hard to be honest in poems. And that's why I wrote writing poetry to save your life, because I really think that if poetry is going to save your life, you have to be willing to go to the cave. You have to be willing to go to that deep place where all your shame and anger and sorrow and fear live. And it's a hard thing to do. We might think it isn't, but it really is. I'm going to read a poem called Nighty. Again, this might be a poem that you remember. At my bridal shower, someone gave me a pink see-through nightgown and pink satin slippers with slender heels and feathers. The gown had feathers on it too. I've always hated my legs, and even then, when I was still thin and in good shape, I didn't want to wear that nightgown or slippers, didn't want to parade in front of you like some pinup, but I wore them anyway. All those negligees I got as shower presents, sleazy nylon I didn't know was tacky. When I wore shorty nightgowns, I'd leave them to bed, not wanting to know how the nightgown revealed what I thought my biggest flaw. In all the young years of our marriage, I wore a different nightgown every night, not that it ever stayed on for long. And afterwards, I'd pull it back on, afraid our children would find me naked in our bed. I felt so sophisticated in those nightgowns, like the ones Doris Day wore in movies. Only years later, when my daughter buys me a nightgown made of soft and smooth blue silk, do I realize that the first ones I owned were cheap imitations of this, the one I hold now to my cheek. Grateful to have been once what I was. How lucky I am to have loved you in nylon, in silk, in my own incredible skin. I can't quite believe that my husband is already dead 13 years. Seems impossible, but every once in a while I turn around and I swear he's sitting there. I'm talking to him and I'm saying, what are you doing? So suddenly I realize he can't possibly be there. What am I doing? Okay, I'm going to read a poem from Ancestor Song. And I'm going to lower the book, otherwise you can't see my face. Not that you'd be missing much, but Z. Louisa and the Chocolate Squares. Z. Louisa, my honorary aunt, had no children of her own, refused to take her husband's son in, so he lived with the distant relatives of his mother. How he must have hated her, who let him live in her second floor apartment for 2 days before she told her husband she wouldn't have the boy in her house anymore. Z. Louisa must have weighed 250 pounds, held in by one of those old whalebone corsets with bone stays and laces. She dyed her hair a brassy red, wore bright lipstick and makeup, was always busy and working hard. I never remember her sitting still. She loved to dance the tarantella at the Chilantana Society dances. She had a little fine handkerchief she used to wipe away the sweat. After her first three husbands died, she married her fourth, Guillermo, that handsome silver-haired man who became my godfather. They were an unlikely pair. Guillermo, so soft-spoken, so gentle, so kind. Louisa, so outspoken and brass. When we visit Zia Louisa in her two-family house on 18th Street, she'd serve the adult espresso and anisette and homemade cookies. For the children, she poured glasses of milk with a drop of coffee and sugar. Then she'd go to her china cabinet, open the glass drawers, and draw out one of those large bars of Hershey's chocolate and break off one of those six squares for each of us. My mother made everything herself. She never bought chocolate bars or Oreos or creamsicles. So Zita's chocolate square was an exquisite pleasure. When we savored as long as we could, holding it in our mouths until it finally melted away. Before they bought the house on 18th Street, they lived on the second floor of our house on 17th. My mother said in the night she'd hear Zila sobbing. The next morning, Zia Louisa would come downstairs, cheerful and laughing, pretending nothing had happened during the night. Years later, my mother tells me she didn't know what was wrong. What I remember most about Zia Louisa, even now, is the mystery that cloaked that anguish sobbing in the night. And there are some things all of us are too ashamed ever to tell. And I'm going to read a poem called Sleepover. My mother wasn't a big fan of letting you go anywhere outside of the house. She seemed to think that every man who approached us was going to attack us or something. I don't know. But anyway, when I was a freshman in college, she did let me go to my friend's house and sleep over. And I have to find the poem because I think I put it in the wrong. But before I do that, I'm going to read a poem called Clementine. The pungent aroma of clementine lingers on my hands long after I've peeled the skin off them. The perfume of the fruit carries me back to my mother's kitchen in the apartment on 17th Street, where my mother peels a tangerine for me, encouraging me, her sickly, skinny 7-year-old daughter, to eat. My mother's hands, quick and efficient, peeled the fruit and fed me one section at a time. When I was a grown woman with children of my own, my mother sat with me at her kitchen table and sliced an apple for me, passing me one slice at a time. And my daughter, grown up now too, remembers her grandmother cutting up an orange or an apple and feeding it to her when she was a child. My mother never learned how to read and write English. When she wanted to go to night school, my father said, no, women don't need to go to school. Well, my mother knew by instinct how to love, knew how to nurture plants and children so they thrive, knew how to offer the right word of comfort, the words to give us courage, even when we were most afraid. No school could have taught her what she knew. It taught us how to reach out to others and feed them one small slice of comfort at a time. And she really did. She very much did. Too bad I can't read my own handwriting, or I know what the page is for this. Do you find your handwriting's getting worse? My handwriting's going to hell in a handbasket. This is called Sleepover. Oh, sorry, guys. I know it's here. It was here 2 minutes ago, unless it got up off the page. Come on, Maria, what is wrong with you? Okay, I'm gonna have to get up on that, I think. Oh, no, here it is. That does say 19. My first sleepover was at Betty's house in Little Falls. Her family's stucco and timber house and its big property. I was 19. I met Betty the first day of college, and she became my best friend. My mother finally agreed to let me sleep over at Betty's house, though my mother believed we were only safe when we were in her own house. Since she left Italy when she was 23, she never wanted to go anywhere again. Our house was her country. She, the absolute monarch. But this time she said I could go. So I took the bus home from college with Betty, and we had dinner with her family. We had hamburgers for the first time, and no one spoke except to say, "Pass the potatoes, please." No laughter, no political argument. Her father, stoic and silent. Her mother, expressionless, her face frozen. Her brother eating and not looking at anyone. I was so nervous and uncomfortable, I could hardly swallow. Later, we sat together, Betty and I, in her bedroom and talked about school and boys and books and professors. When it was time to sleep, Betty pulled out the sofa bed in the living room and we climbed in. I felt awkward, uncomfortable. Every noise and creak in the house scared me, but finally I slept. But in the middle of the night, her huge black cat jumped onto my chest and I screamed, waking up the entire house. Her mother and father ran down from upstairs. Her brother appeared in the hall. I wanted to hide, and I kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And the next morning, I couldn't look them in the eye. At home again, eating the foods I was used to, meatballs and gravy and macaroni and braciole, sitting at our kitchen table, my family around me talking politics and laughing. All of us part of a group we knew we belonged to. I was grateful that Betty's family in that beautiful house was not my family. And God time my mother hugged me to her chest where I could smell the aroma of vanilla and sugar and flour. But even today, I imagine I can call my mother back from the dead and breathe her in. Isn't it odd the way aromas and smells kind of stay with you so long? Like I can still smell my father's old spice. He would use this brush, this shaving brush and a long, whatever that razor is called. And he would stand at the sink with his suspenders down, and he'd have a white undershirt. He was always so clean. It always looked like somebody had polished him, probably my mother. And he then at the end, after he finished brushing on the shaving cream and shaving his face, he would slap on Old Spice. And they were such lovely memories to have that smell. And it all meant safety and comfort and home. And in a way, that's where we're connected to the things that we love. I'm going to read a couple of poems from the place I call home. Some of these you must have heard before, but it's all right. You'll have to hear them again. This is called Little General. My brother called our mother the Little General when we were teenagers. My brother driving the car, my mother sitting next to him. Her head a small dark knob, barely reaching the top of the seat. My bossy mother who told us how to live our lives. My mother who was always moving. When I remember her, I see her almost as a blur, like the cartoon of the Roadrunner. My mother who washed all the dishes as soon as the last bite of food vanished from the plate. My mother who held my doctor brother's foot until he fell asleep when he was still a boy. My mother who sat at the kitchen table with us, always ready to hear the stories of our lives, ready to tell the story of hers. My mother who told me everything that was wrong with me, so I still hear her voice that she said she told me for my own good. My mother who loved to feel the earth on her hands, who smelled the flour and spices, who baked thousands of loaves of bread, cooked innumerable fragrant meals for her children and grandchildren in her basement kitchen. My mother taught me how to laugh. My mother, who could not read or write, and thought she wanted to go to school, my father wouldn't let her. Women don't need to go to school, he said. My mother, who did not know how much money my father had in the bank and never wrote a check. Mother who wanted to learn how to do everything. My mother who could quote poems she memorized in third grade in Italy before she had to leave school. My mother who drew an imaginary line around us to keep us close. The front stoop, the country, a little sturdy body, better than any magic charm. My mother's skin turned orange before she died. Though the week before she got sick, she planted a huge garden. We were sure she was too powerful to die. Ma, even now, 10 years after the funeral procession led us to Calvary Cemetery and the mausoleum drawer they filed you in, I wish I could drive over to your house and find you there. Your free humor, your warm arms that always were the place I call home. And really, she was the place I call home. And then I'm going to read strange how some moments remain caught in our memory. John at 4 in his new two-wheeler, his grandpa helping him until John took off and rode away. It seems to me he's been riding away ever since, first to college, then law school, then with his family to Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and now Dallas. But as if it happened yesterday, I remember sitting on the side of his bed the night before he started high school, his hand in mine, while I found the words to give him courage. And with my hands, I smoothed over the turbulent lake of his fear until he was able to close his eyes and fall asleep. I can see that room, the best side light casting shadows on the walls, the books piled on the end table, the thick lashes riding on the high curve of his cheek. And I held his hand and watched him sleep, knowing this moment was one where I was learning again and again how to let him go. Hardest thing for parents to learn, isn't it? Very hard. I see other people writing about taking their children to college, and what a I know you're supposed to let your kids go, but it was very hard to leave them there and then drive away. So long, see you later. Although a friend of mine said, "Oh, I'm so glad they're out of the house." I thought, what kind of mother are you? Well, probably a much less tightly gripping mother. The cedar keepsake box. What happened to the cedar keepsake box my mother bought me the other time I ever went to the Jersey Shore when I was growing up? After she told me I couldn't have it, too expensive, my mother bought it for me anyway. Here, she said, and turned away. My mother, who loved us with a devotion so complete, we could have been saints to her. I love that box, love the aroma of cedar rising out of it when I opened it, love the feel of the burnished wood under my fingers, the box that will keep my tender secret for years. So much in our lives is like that. We love an object, and then one day it disappears and we don't notice, as though there were a canyon in the middle of the world where all those lost loves go. It is like that with people too. So now when you heard a voice on the phone, that trembling, rasping is become, when you tell me you fell 4 times today and describe each place where you fell, or when you fumble for a word to explain some simple fact, I know you too are going to vanish from my life. The smooth feel of your skin on my hand, onto my hand, the way your shaking hands reach for me, the same way I still remember the sweet smell of cedar lifting out of that wooden box and lifting into the air, the smooth feel of that wooden box under my hand. I tell you, I think the senses, that's really the smell and the feel and the touch of something is what stays with us for so long. And It's quite wonderful, actually. I'm going to read a poem from my latest book, When the Stars Are Still Visible. And just a second, because I can't read my own handwriting anymore. It's really annoying. What does that say? Oh, does that say 54? Okay, just a second. Going shopping. I used to go shopping with my daughter when she was a teenager. I hate stores, hate shopping. Everything takes time. I get bored. But I went shopping with my daughter because she wanted me to go. I loved watching her try on clothes, loved seeing how beautiful she looked, marveled at the perfect bones of her face. What I did not know about shopping could have filled the Garden State Plaza Mall, but I could not deny her anything. We'd get inside a dressing room and all my common sense would fly out the door. And I'd say yes to everything, as though I could make up to this child who still lives inside me for all the clothes I could not afford to buy when I was young, as she is now. I wanted to give her the life I never had, an upper middle class life tucked into a silver box with a silver ribbon. Looking back, I remember how happy I was to watch her try on the clothes we bought, happy that she looked nothing like me. I had yet to learn that all her beauty and grace would not protect her from what waited for her outside the circle I had drawn around her. You want to believe, I mean, if you're ordinary looking, you want to believe that your kid is beautiful, that somehow they would escape all the terrible pain of growing up, but it doesn't work that way, obviously. Okay. This poem is called Badge of Embarrassment. And if I could find it, it'd be really great because I have the wrong page on it. Just wait a minute. Oh, here it is. When I was growing up, I was embarrassed by my Italian parents. Their English stuck on their tongues. They wore their foreignness like a badge. I knew everyone in the world could see. Now, years after they both have died, I realized that all the things about them that made me feel ashamed are the very things I now remember. The old black coal stove with its pots bubbling on its surface, my mother's bread baking in the oven, that table that always had room for one more. My parents who had nothing but their big hearts, the circle they drew around us to keep us safe, and the place they made for others to join us at our table, the way they taught us by what they did to love each other and the world. And my mother was determined that we were going to stay friends all our lives. And we really have. My brother is my doctor, and he also is somebody I totally depend on in many, many ways. Not only because I'm only calling him with a new symptom, but also because he really is very dear to me and somebody that I really need to have around. In the photograph, I am 16. In the photograph, I am 16, dressed for high school prom. My dress is light blue, a color I chose because I wanted to be blonde and not me, with my olive toned skin and dark frizzy hair. I am thin and high-breasted. The dress is fitted carefully over my body and slender waist, and then swirls out into a bottom that is lifted by two crinolines. It's the 1950s. These are the kinds of clothes all the girls are wearing. I have on high heels and nylons held up by a garter belt. I am shy and uncomfortable. I barely speak outside the house, although at home with my Italian parents, I am exuberant, words tumbling out over themselves as I speak. It was only in poetry that I found a way to live in America. The poetry that I could express all the dreams that filled me with longing. In my poems, I could be the strong, independent person I imagined myself to be at some future time. I am 16, my life ahead of me. The long road I have yet to climb is just shrouded in mystery as this cloud-ringed mountains where I sit writing this poem today. So many years have passed since that photograph in the dress that was pale blue, and it took me years to realize it was covering the bright red spirit inside of me. Strange how we want to erase ourselves. We have this real desire to erase ourselves and be something that we're not. And we just don't seem to realize how important it is to recognize what is beautiful inside ourselves, even if we're not traditionally beautiful on the outside, what is beautiful and special and unique about ourselves, and to treasure that. This poem is called Chalk, Dust, and Light. In the ballroom at the Marriott in Albany, New York, in the middle of this conference, I remember suddenly, in the middle of giving a keynote address, by the way, I remember suddenly Miss Ferrara's voice in 5th grade when she read poems and stories to us. Her eyes, big and soft as a doe's, her generous mouth, her love of words, how our love of those words made us love them too. Miss Ferrara, I write to you from a distance of 64 years to thank you for all those hours of reading aloud in the dusty classrooms of PS 18, for treating me as if I were your child, for touching my arm when you patched me in the aisle, for filling that classroom with chalk, dust, and light, the light that came from you, the husky voice I still remember. Thank you for the way you changed my life, opened doors inside me I didn't know were there, for teaching me that books could take me away to places I'd never been, to places I might never see. And I'm so grateful to her, and I wish I had written her a letter. How many teachers do we have who really were so, again, I hate when people denigrate teachers, because for many of us, teachers and librarians opened the door for us, made us see that there was another life out there, that books could carry you away, that books could change your life, or there were words on a page that they could make you fly and soar and really find what you needed to do. This poem is called Meatloaf and Hamburger Helper. Growing up, my mother cooked macaroni and gravy, meatballs and braciole, spinach, lentil soup, roasted chicken and potatoes, made zeppoli, big salads fresh from the garden, zucchini with rosemary. Meals so delicious, I can still taste them. When my children were growing up, my mother-in-law had taught me how to make American food that my husband liked because he grew up on it. So I learned how to make pot roast and leg of lamb and stew and roast beef and pork chops and steak and baked potatoes. She taught me how to make meatloaf, which is cheap and could be used for one meal plus sandwiches. She taught me to make meals with hamburger helper, which my mother called that junk. Years later, my stomach turns at the thought of hamburger helper, the greasy feel of it, the fake chemical taste of sauces and spices, flavor created in a lab. But when I served those meals, so different from anything my mother ever made, I felt I had arrived in middle-class America, that now belonged to the land that almost guaranteed you'd have a heart attack before you could reach old age, and not the land of my father, too poor to buy all that meat, even if he wanted to. My father, who died at 92, sitting in the sun in his garden, the aroma of tomatoes and peppers and zucchini perfuming the air around him. Okay, And wait a minute, I just have to check on the time here, make sure I'm not going over. I'm not going over, am I? No, okay. I'm going to read a poem. You probably all know, many of you have been in my workshops at St. Marguerite's retreat house. And several years ago when I was there, it was snowing, and it was a workshop in December, and it was snowing outside the window of the retreat house. Snow falls thick outside the windows of St. Marguerite's retreat house. If only my mother had not died more than 20 years ago, I'd tell her, my practical no-nonsense mother, to stop working long enough to look out into the softening December world, here in this peaceful world where no sound enters. Memory pulls me back to the 17th Street kitchen with its coal stove and sweet bread baking aroma. It is 1947. We're having a huge blizzard, and all the windows in our apartment frost over in patterns that seem to me to be exquisitely beautiful. My mother gives me a potato fresh from the oven. I hold the hot potato, its crunchy skin in my hand, and I realize how much more my mother offered when she gave me that warmth to hold in my hands. And funny how long something like that stays with you, isn't it? It just seems to me to be amazing how long something stays with you, how long it is before you forget something like that. I'm going to read a poem, which I probably should read. I hope my daughter can't hear me. Wait a minute, I think I'll read this other one. My first real boyfriend. I never write about sex, so this is very embarrassing for me, but I'm going to try to read it without giggling. My first real boyfriend, the one I never mentioned, not even to my husband ever, the one I still can't think about without flinching, the one I met at the literary club at Seton Hall in South Orange, the one who looked nothing like the blonde, blue-eyed boys I always fell for, the one who kept asking me to go out until I finally said yes, the one who was so persistent he could talk me into anything, even making love in his car, despite the stick shift and the handbrake. So he had to be contortionist in order to manage it. I can still see the steamed up windows in his old car that he parked at the T-Bowl lanes on Hamburg Turnpike in Wayne. He found a corner far away from the glare of the T-Bowl's neon lights, and I was terrified that the police would arrive and shine their light on us. Each time I'd swear to myself that I would never do this again, but of course I did. I can feel the cracked leather of that old car on my back, the mixture of excitement and terror, the inability to stop. I've erased his name from my memory. All I know I used to write it hundreds of times in my notebook. I truly can't remember his name. I never been told anybody about it either. I'm going to read a couple of poems from, or maybe I'll just finish with this poem from The Silence in the Empty House, which is mostly written when my husband was dying. He had early onset Parkinson's disease, and he was sick for about 25 years, but the last couple of years, he really went downhill very quickly. Watching the pelican die. On TV, I watched the pelican with its mouth wide open, its wings and body coated with oil. Is it screaming? I don't know. I do not hear the sound. And since this is a photograph, I don't know if it was caught in that mouth stretched howl when it died, or if it's howling in recognition that it cannot survive thick coat of oil, but it bears it down. The ladies who take care of when I'm gone tell me you are having trouble. His hands, they say, his hands. When I come home, I see your hands have turned black at the tips, and I see the ends of your fingers have been eaten away. I watch the dead bird in the Gulf floating on top of the water, its legs stiff and straight in the air, its body drained of all motion all night light. The next day I take you to the doctor. He tells us he will have to operate to remove the gangrenous flesh. The announcer on CNN says BP didn't want the photographer to take pictures of the dying birds, covered as they are with a black slick of oil. They were hoping, he says, the birds would sink and the evidence would be swallowed by the ocean. And late afternoon, I hear my daughter cry out. I rush to see what's happened, and you are stretched out on the bed. Your body's so thin, you look like a boy. Do not move. I call 911, and the ambulance takes you to the hospital. BP is trying to put a cap on the spinning oil rig. CEO keeps saying it's no problem. Clumps of oil wash ashore and float on the surface of the water. The beach is littered with dead fish or birds. At the hospital, they want to know if we want extraordinary measures. No, I say, he has a living will. You hover around while they admit you've forgotten how to speak. Most of you lie in bed, staring into a space of our heads. In my mind, I see the screaming bird, its mouth wide open, a picture of torment and despair. I reach out to hold your hand, stroke your forehead. Dennis, I call out. Dennis, do not hear me. The neurologist comes in, says, he should have been dead 5 years ago. What did you expect? You shouldn't have taken such good care of him. We did everything we could, the BP president says, looking directly at the camera. It's not such a calamity. The governor of Louisiana that says we don't need to stop deep water drilling. Our economy will collapse if we do. We stand around your hospital bed. My brother comes in and says he'll try a stronger antibiotic. He's bad, he says, but he waits until we are in the hall to tell me. The social worker tells me, you should put him in a nursing home. My brother tells me, you kept him home all this time. If he gets a little stronger, I'll let him go home and he'll be around the things he knows. Another doctor comes in, tells me he's not going to make it. The social worker admonishes us with her bag of common sense. She does not love you. We take you home. I sit next to you and hold your hand. The MSNBC reporter stands on the beach in a hurricane and picks up a huge glob of oil with a stick. Look, she says, look, and drips the oil on the white sand. She is shaking with fury at such destruction. Dead birds float behind her. I'm in so much pain, you say, that you haven't complained before. We find you a jar of baby applesauce. You open your mouth and accept the food. When I see the pelican on TV with its mouth wide open in horror, I remember you as you lay dying. On the Gulf, the earth and the sea are being destroyed, just as you were by the disease that finally defeated you after struggling against it for all those years. Some things are bigger than all of us. We cannot defeat them. If there is enough carelessness and greed in the world, even the ocean can be reached and destroyed. And you have fought against this illness with such courage. Even you cannot survive. The blackened tips of your fingers, the oil heavy on the bird's feathers, the birds dead and floating to the surface, that gradually sink and disappear. Thank you for your kindness.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was beautiful. Truly, truly a magical evening. Truly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It's very hard to move on from that. It was really, really wonderful. Okay, we're going to do the open mic. Let's see. Is there anyone who wants to read in the open mic that did not send me an email? Just wave at me right now. I'm looking for waving people. Okay, good. Nobody's waving. Okay, good. Okay, first up, we have Ron Bremner. You have to unmute yourself.